Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar today. The topic for today's webinar is Solar+Storage for Puerto Rico Fire Station Resilience. We have a bunch of excellent guest speakers with us on the line today. Before we pass it over to them, I'd like to go over a few quick housekeeping notes. All of our attendees for this webinar are in listen-only mode. You have a couple of options to join the audio portion of today's webinar. You can call in via telephone, or you can connect using your computer, mic, and speakers. If you'd like to minimize your webinar console so that you can view the presentation full screen, you can click on the orange arrow that you see circled there on your screen. You can also click on the arrow to expand the webinar console. And one of the things that we encourage you to do with your webinar console is to type in your questions and comments throughout the webinar. We will be saving some time, about 15 minutes or so, for Q&A with the audience following the presentation. And we'll get to as many questions as we can, so do type those in. Finally, this webinar is being recorded. We'll send you an email with a copy of the webinar recording, probably this afternoon, and we'll also be posting all of the webinar materials on our website at cleanegroup.org/webinars. So with that, I'm going to now pass it over to our moderator for today's webinar, Abby Ramanan. Abby is a project manager here at Clean Energy Group, which is the organization that is hosting this webinar. And Abby is going to get us started today. Abby, over to you.
Great, thank you, Sam, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We have a really exciting webinar ahead of us. Before I introduce today's presenters, I just wanted to give you all a quick overview of who we are at Clean Energy Group. Clean Energy Group is a national nonprofit organization based in Vermont. We work at advancing innovation in clean energy technologies through policy, finance, and individual project level support. Our work is funded by several private foundations, including those shown here. And we also have a sister organization, the Clean Energy States Alliance, which is a membership coalition of state energy agencies that manage clean energy funds. This presentation today is brought to you by Clean Energy Group's Resilient Power Project. The Clean Energy Group formed the Resilient Power Project after Superstorm Sandy and the resulting power outages across the Northeast that occurred from the storm. Since then, we've expanded and are currently active in project development throughout the country. The Resilient Power Project aims to improve access to resilient power technologies, primarily solar PV and battery storage, in low-income communities, communities of color, and historically underserved communities. Our efforts include policy advocacy, project development support, and education, including publishing reports like the ones that you can see here. We work with state and local policymakers as well to advance policies, incentives, and regulatory structures that enable greater access to solar and storage for those underserved communities. And we also offer analyses and reports, and of course, host webinars like this one. In addition to our advocacy and education efforts, I just want to highlight that we do also work with local governments and community groups on individual project level support to ensure that solar and storage projects are developed and implemented in under-resourced communities. We're not developers, we prefer to work as facilitators. As you can see here, we've supported over 250 projects across the country, several which have been developed and deployed. A number of those projects are mostly on the East and West Coast, but we're increasingly supporting projects in the Midwest and the Southeast as well. If you're interested in learning more, please visit our website or feel free to reach out to us directly. So yeah, now on to today's webinar. Today's presenters are Sergeant Luis Saez Vega of the Puerto Rico Fire Department. Sergeant Vega is a 24-year veteran of the fire service. He currently serves as the director of the Forestry Division and command of the Wanaka Fire Station for the Puerto Rico Fire Department. In addition, he serves as a crew boss with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and engine boss with Wildfire Defense Systems in Montana. Hunter Johansson is the founder and CEO of Solar Responders. Hunter holds a bachelor's degree in applied economics from the University of Vermont and a master's in public administration from New York University's Robert F. Wagner School for Public Service. After meeting with members of the Puerto Rico Fire Department in 2018, Hunter was inspired to found Solar Responders as a strength-based approach to honoring and building the resilience of vulnerable communities using renewable energy. And then finally, I'd like to introduce Angel Sayas, who is the founder of AZ Engineering. Angel founded AZ Engineering, a Puerto Rico-based company focused on the design of residential, commercial, and industrial electrical projects in 2000. Angel holds a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Puerto Rico at Mayua's campus and a master's degree in engineering management from the Polytechnic University of Puerto Rico, as well as various certifications. Sergeant Vega, Hunter, Angel, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll let you all take it from here.
Thank you so much, Abby. Thank you so much, Samantha, the entire Clean Energy Group for this very special opportunity. We are Solar+Responders, a registered 501c3 nonprofit and a Puerto Rico 1101 tax-exempt organization. Our mission is to maximize the capacity of first responders to save lives with renewable energy. Our vision is that no person loses their life because first responders lack access to power. We can never know when we will need a first responder to save our life. And that is why first responders must have every tool needed to fulfill their life-saving purpose before an emergency happens. Power is fundamental to their work. It is essential for first responders to charge radios, operate the 911 system, call for mutual aid, and operate the station for the safety, security, and well-being of the community. I'd like to send a message of solidarity to those in Texas. On behalf of the Puerto Rico Fire Department and AZ Engineering, we send well wishes to the residents, first responders, and their families impacted by the recent climate event. On September 20th, 2017, Hurricane Maria caused the longest blackout in US history. All of the island's 96 fire stations and 59 paramedic stations lost power. Some first responder stations were without power for 1 year. The length of time without power depended on the remoteness of the station and its proximity to a power plant. These images come from research conducted by NASA scientist Dr. Miguel Roman, who is a native of Puerto Rico. It depicts human-made light at night. The yellow areas are the most populated, the purple are less, and the areas with no color are the most remote communities in Puerto Rico. The top image shows Puerto Rico on a normal night before the hurricane. The large yellow spot on top is San Juan, the capital of Puerto Rico. Some of the other brighter lights in yellow areas include the cities of Caguas, Ponce, and Mayagüez. Now take a look at the bottom image, which was taken 4 months after the hurricane. Power started to return to the larger cities, but not the smaller towns and rural areas. There was a clear disparity in the grid's recovery. Note that the image does not include the islands of Culebra and Vieques. Residents in these locations were without grid power for some of the longest periods. The human toll of the hurricane is the ultimate injustice. It is the cost we cannot afford. There is an estimated 3,000 to 5,000 people that died in the ensuing days, weeks, and months of the hurricane. We must ask, how many didn't have to? In the aftermath of the hurricane, first responders had to rely on diesel generators, although many of those generators were damaged. In some cases, they were broken or operating poorly before the storm, as seen in the image on the left. In other cases, the generators could operate only half of the day so that they didn't break down from overuse. In other locations, it was so difficult to transport fuel because mudslides, debris, and other hazards made it impossible to transport fuel, and first responder stations ended up running out of diesel. Firefighters are often tasked with clearing roads after a hurricane. Without power, this could not be done. As storms increase in capacity and strength, we must proactively invest in innovation and preparedness and strengthen partnerships with our Puerto Rican brothers and sisters to ensure this innovation happens, that this devastation never happens again. These are photos of some of Solar+Responders installations, all completed with AZ Engineering, who we will hear from shortly. We've installed solar and battery storage on a total of 6 fire stations, with a total of all 96 by the end of 2023. This year, we're planning 26 fire stations. These systems replace diesel generators as the primary backup when the power grid fails. They are designed to withstand wind speeds of at least 175 miles per hour and provide total continuity as soon as the power goes out. We use new equipment, provide a 5-year maintenance agreement on each station, and train firefighters in monitoring, management of energy loads, and basic maintenance. For now, our systems range in size from 10 to 20 kilowatt DC and 27 to 54 kilowatts of storage, although some stations may be significantly larger. These systems enable firefighters to save lives in the event of a disaster and during the daily power outages that occur in Puerto Rico. The systems are large enough so that the community can use the power from the station for medical equipment, refrigerate medicine, charge communications, and seek refuge. The station becomes a long-term hub for resiliency. Our 6 installations have both environmental, social, and financial impact. They provided over 900 hours of backup power, including through last year's earthquakes and hurricanes. These systems are saving money on the station's monthly energy bills, anywhere from 10 to 80%, depending on the loads and the size of the systems, and reducing their carbon footprint by an estimated 11.5 metric tons annually. We are outsiders, but we are not saviors. We know that the solutions are going to come from our partners and ecosystems on the ground. It is why we've invested the past 3 years staying humble and always listening and learning. Our organization was founded in response to the island's demand for self-determination, empowerment, not reliant on the intervention of outside groups such as FEMA and the Army Corps. Our goal was to build a platform that was woven into Puerto Rico's existing fabric and values, not separate from them. And at the center of our work is love. Love for the island, love for the Borican community. And at the organization level, our goal is to transition to local stewardship. And at some point, we will have a board and staff that are all Borican. We learned much over the past 3 years because we've been on the ground. Our experience allowed us to identify tangible opportunities that are within reach and that are financially sustainable, adaptable to the impacts of climate change, and will last for decades to come through workforce development and maintenance programs. Last year, Solar+Responders signed an agreement with the government of Puerto Rico to own, operate, and maintain solar power and battery storage on all 96 fire stations and 59 paramedic stations. This agreement is the first of its kind in the world. Revenue streams provide a pathway for us to recoup a portion of the savings on energy bills to fund long-term maintenance. Maintenance is critical for the long-term operational capacity of our systems. Currently, we fundraise for 5 years of maintenance on each of our systems. We are also examining the feasibility of a PPA model, as well as the potential for a microgrid. Local non-governmental organizations and fundraising partnerships are growing in number and capacity and will help to ensure the efficacy of our mission. We are partnered with students at Polytechnic University, a local university in San Juan, to conduct structural assessments of the stations. We are also in the process of formalizing our relationship with Bosque Modelo, a local non-governmental organization, to provide Borican women with training opportunities so they can receive their solar installation certification. We only hire local contractors, and with funding, we will hire local staff. Right now, I am the only employee with an incredible board. Our board chair, Nita Baum, is a woman of color that leads in equity, justice, and healing consultancy to nonprofits and philanthropies. Our treasurer, Raj Thakar, has deep expertise in nonprofit finance and has 2 companies focused on that. And this year, we were honored that Jose Humberto Roman Morales, the former head of the Puerto Rico Energy Commission, accepted our invitation to join as board secretary. Humberto is the first Puerto Rican to join our board and definitely will not be the last. Connecting to the Puerto Rican diaspora is very important to our work, as policies of the Fiscal Oversight Board, Washington, D.C., and New York impact the island's legislative agenda, as well as types and amounts of public expenditures. We seek to expand our scope beyond the island in order to protect our relationships and investments on the island. We also acknowledge the relationship and history between the US government and Puerto Rico. We use our mission as an opportunity to foster partnership and recognition of our interdependencies and alliances. First responders here are first responders everywhere. Their mission is the same, whether in San Juan, Puerto Rico, or the San Juan Mountains of Colorado. And powering whole stations and not just critical loads so that firefighters do not have to worry about their consumption in the midst of a disaster and can focus on their mission to save lives. Also, the community can utilize stations for their needs and safety without compromising the capacity of the station. And lastly, integrating our systems into the fire department's standard operating procedure, or SOP, is critical to the long-term success of our systems. Firefighters must have working knowledge of the system's operations, maintenance, and safety protocols. We are working with Captain Richard Burt, a Solar Responders advisor and Clean Energy Group alumni, as well as the Puerto Rico Fire Department, to develop this new SOP. Government continuity and fiscal oversight. Just as the states, there is a new administration every 4 years. Even though our agreement with the Puerto Rican government is long-term, we seek to cement continuity of our work over time through lobbying and passing legislation in Puerto Rico. For one, we don't believe that the ability of first responders to effectively do their work, such as having reliable backup power, should be a part of any reconciliation of past debt. Fundraising for Puerto Rico is challenging. More than 3 years since the hurricane, many foundations and donors have left the island. But in these times of worsening climate events, we must be diligent and continue to focus on proactive planning and infrastructure investments, which are critical to the principle of resiliency and adaptation, especially with communities who are on the front line of the impacts of a changing climate. Infrastructure issues become apparent as we visit more stations. We encounter pre-hurricane issues such as roof damage, malfunctioning generators, as well as other capacity issues such as low internet bandwidth, which can hinder monitoring of our systems, insufficient portable radio transmission, which means the firefighters need satellite communications, especially in the interior, and also access to clean water. And lastly, sharing our story. Funding partners are critical to our work. We were honored to receive a grant from the Clean Energy Group to support the design of 3 of our stations. But right now, funding is our greatest need. Some ways to help support us are, if you're an institutional advisor or donor, please contact me directly. My email is hunter, Hunter, at solarresponders.org. To anyone in a position to donate, or if you'd like more information about our work, you can visit our website, solarresponders.org. And you can share our story. Just want to thank Clean Energy Group again for allowing us this opportunity to present on your platform. We're truly grateful. If you know of any other speaking opportunities, folks that we should meet, or if there's press or media opportunities, drop us a line. You can follow us on social media at Solar Responders. Our next speaker, I'm very proud to introduce, is a good friend, Sergeant Luis Saez. He is currently in Jauco, and we're going to hear from him about the experience of the hurricane and the earthquakes, where he's at the center of where the earthquakes occurred, and also the importance of power. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
Thank you, Hunter. Good afternoon to everybody. My name is Sergeant Luis Saez, like they mentioned, Director of Forestry Division here in Puerto Rico Fire Department, also the supervisor of the task force of our department. On behalf of the Puerto Rico Fire Department Fire Chief, Mr. Javish Collazo, we would like to start our participation by thanking very deeply Solar Responders and other partners for everything they've done for the fire department, not only helping us with responses, but also helping us saving lives. That's what this system does to our stations. They help us be better in saving lives by responding. Also, thanks for the opportunity here to use this platform. I just want to contribute my experience that I've had here in Puerto Rico since Hurricane Maria, and hopefully you can have a better sense, because I've worked on the ground on both events, Hurricane Maria and the earthquakes, directly with the people that need the help. So again, the importance of reliable power for our stations is very big. I'm just going to put it, for example, Hurricane Maria. The most important thing that happened in Hurricane Maria was we lost continuity of operations. What does continuity of operations mean? It means that we could not respond. That's just basically it. People did not have any responders to call so we can respond and help. That's just the main thing that happened with us. It's a sense of feeling helpless, useless as a responder. When you're in a fire station, hurricane just hit, Category 5, everything's dark, and you just don't know who needs the help. And that was basically my experience with the hurricane. People had to get to our fire stations in Jauco, in Guanica, all over the fire stations, all over the island. They had to go walking to the station and beg for help. And that's how we knew who needed help. They just, literally got to the station, scream, and we have a fire, or we have people trapped, we need to cut trees. And we just went from place to place wherever they found us on the road. So it's very important that the continued operations, these systems, what bring is, more reliable power to our stations. It's just so it's a basic thing. We cannot depend on the power authority. It in Hurricane Maria, the whole power authority just collapsed. That's true. It collapsed. Hopefully, though, it's better now. But with these solar power stations, we don't depend on that. So it's one of the benefits is we save lives. Also, another experience that I had in Maria, that's when I knew that we were saving lives. We need power to save lives. There was people, normal citizens, went to the fire stations to connect their oxygen machines. And also they needed to connect therapy machines. And I share this with you because usually responders, it's like we receive a call and let's go help people. Well, after the hurricane was people were getting to our station and hoping that we had power, which in the beginning we did have power. We had some generators, which the diesel was impossible to find. Gas stations were out of service. We had to do a lot of lines to get gas, even us, the responders. And we saved lives in the beginning, but there was a lot of people that we could not help after that because we had no power because we ran out of fuel. So with having solar power in our station, which is the case now in Yauco, now when the earthquake hits, this is the other experience I'm going to share with you. It's the earthquake. We had a 6.4 earthquake in the south part of Puerto Rico and devastated Guanica, Yauco, like 6 or 7 towns in the south part of the island. And it the same experience. There was people in need for help. The power just went out quick. And Yauco is a station which has solar power and has been able to help a lot of people in the community with having a station with reliable power. Every citizen now knows that, and they go to the station and they can rely that the firefighters are going to have power. So just very important. Just want to give you the sense of how important it is for us to have power. We could talk about other things that are benefit to us. I just want to do an emphasis on it saved lives. Also, like Hunter mentioned in his presentation, we have environment issues with diesel and gas that we get benefit with that. The light money issue, we don't pay as high for power authority bill with the power solar systems. That brings an economy to the agency. So that's also another benefit. And we can go on and on with the benefits of having these, but I just wanted to emphasize on how many lives we can save if we had all our stations. Because I'm just giving you an example of Guanica, which is the base of operations of our task force in the south part of the island, and Yauco that has the system now. And also we work with all these stations in the south. If any emergency hits, again, in the future, if we had these systems in every single station in the south, in Puerto Rico, wherever the emergency is, we can, rely that that phone call is going to reach the station, and we can help more and more people and save their lives. Basically, that's, I just wanted to contribute that with, this opportunity I got. And sometimes people just, emphasis on, solar power, benefits of, environment. Yes, that's true. But for us responders, it goes more than that. It goes saving lives, and we appreciate the stations that have been done, and whatever other stations can be done, please, we need them. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and any questions, I'll be more than willing to answer.
Thank you so much, Sergeant Luis Saez. We thank you for your 24 years of service to saving lives. We do this work for you, in honor of you and all the brothers and sisters of the Puerto Rican Fire Service and all first responders in the country, in the United States. It's a true honor to do this work. So thank you for your service and dedication and everything.
Thank you so much, Hunter.
Yes. So our next speaker is a very close friend, colleague, Angel Zayas. He is the founder of AZ Engineering. So happy to have you on this call and participation, Angel. Angel has installed all 6 of our installations, and he's done work all across the island. We are so grateful, with so much gratitude. I'm so happy that you can join us and share your thoughts. So without ado.
Thank you, Hunter, and thank you everybody that is in this conference. Well, just briefly, and just everybody knows AC Engineering. We are an electrical engineering design firm, and also after 2007 working in solar system for the whole 9 yard. And after the hurricane, we've been building more into that EPC work too. We work with civil, structural, mechanical, all around just to work on all the permitting that is needed. And obviously, and thank you, Hunter, for the strategic partnership that we have for these projects and future projects too, okay? In terms of the opportunities that we've seen in this type of projects that we're working with the fire station, one of the key that we're looking always is to work in advance for materials. We are not a company that has a warehouse. We work hand to hand with other distributors. So we work with manufacturers, suppliers to make sure that our materials are available when we need it. And we forecast basically with a distributor what we really need in a quarterly basis, so that we can meet the needs of the solar responder projects. And this year it's not going to be the different. It's more challenging, and we need to continue working with that. Other opportunities that we see is obviously we need to work increasing our partnerships and working with other installers. We're looking an exponential curve on the installations in Puerto Rico. So I see a need or opportunity for increasing the workforce development. That's key in Puerto Rico. There's a lot of need all over the island. And we see providing, as Hunter mentioned at the beginning, with this partnership with Bosque Modelo, to really providing the training to the women and that are essential for this work. And we've seen it. We've seen it in some of the projects that we've worked. For example, in the fire station in Loíza, and that was really amazing the work the woman did. So we're really excited on partnering with other organizations to promote this important investment. Other opportunities that we have in front of us is PREPA. PREPA, we need to let PREPA know what is coming. There's a lot of work projects right now going on, and just on the lookout and the goals for solar responder for this year and the next 2 or 3 years, we're talking about 96 total forestation. So we need to work in advance with PREPA, meeting with them, telling them where are those stations, working the evaluation letters in advance so that they know what is coming, and really open the venues so that this will make it happen and really not present any obstacle. Actually, they could be a facilitator to really make this happen and have the fire station with the backup electricity and saving lives as you've seen and hear from Sergeant Saez. In terms of challenges, okay, let me see here. Okay, Well, every 3 years, we have some revision of the electrical code, okay? In October 2018, in November 2018, it was adopted, the new electrical code. We were on the NEC 2011, and at that time, it was adopted the 2017. This brought new requirements on the rapid shutdown that have increased costs, okay? However, based on the electrical code, the rapid shutdowns is basically done for the fire responders on the safety to avoid electrocution of equipment in the roof that are energized, even turning off the main service disconnect. So is important on those terms. However, in Puerto Rico, and this is an information that we've been talking with the fire station and PREPA, we don't see needed in the residentials because we got concrete roof, really a small footprint. So we're really working out with them on how to have a waiver on that area for the housing area. But on the commercial side, as Hunter mentioned, Captain Richard Bird, who is our consultant and has been working with us, is really needed for the commercial, and there's no way it can be waived on the commercial side, just for information. Also, in the we got also the construction building code, okay, that also now is getting revisions every 3 years, and it should be adopted. And the last one that got adopted in 2018 brought us with an increase in the wind lift requirements that the structural engineer needs to work out. And for example, in this fire station, one of the things that we had to do to increase that or meet the requirement for the building code in terms of the wind lift was to add a third rail to each of the rows of PV modules. Also, when we look at this type of a station, we try to see what ways can we install below the parapet, so also the wind will be avoided as much as possible. And we have the structural engineer always looking at this and making sure that we meet those requirements. Okay. So I got, okay, we're going back. I'm sorry. Okay. I talked already about availability of materials. Okay. We are planning ahead. And one of the areas that also we are building and working is on inventories. If we look at some standardization to make sure that all stations will be on trying to be as much as possible standard, then our inventories will be lower so that Solar Responder, we can have the replacement that are needed for any of the station that requires any replacement. Equipment location, that was another challenge that we faced at the beginning. Even though some of the materials that we use, or mostly that we use, are rated for the outdoor NEMA 3R, for example, the batteries. Due to the nature of the importance of the fire station, Solar Responders said, okay, no, let's make it an installment inside the building so we can avoid as much as possible any damage in the future and ensure the safety and security of the batteries. So that brought us to a challenge at some point because of space, but we have worked it around and make it happen in the fire stations. Okay, I'm sorry. So here you see two installations in the fire station in Loíza. That was the first one that we had it on the outside, the batteries. and then we just moved it to the inside to an area that was possible to do it. And then the fire station in Cataño, we just decided to make it happen inside the in that closet or room that was available. Another challenge, as I talked before, is a PREPA interconnection and metering agreement. Obviously, one of the key aspects of this project, long-term project for 2-3 years, is a backup generation, but also to get the benefit of the net metering because we are interconnected. So with the increase of a system that has been installed in Puerto Rico recently, for example, I'm showing this data coming from the PREPA by itself that did an informed report to the Bureau of Energy in February 19. We have around 5,600 cases that are backlogged. And only in those three last quarter from October to January 2021, there were submitted 3,500 cases. So in reality, PREPA is getting overloaded just with the normal and day-to-day installations that we're having, okay? If we add all the fire station, there's a project coming up also here in Puerto Rico with the CDBG, around 5,000 houses that will be coming within the next year or so. Then an additional 10,000 houses in that same program as second phase and third phase. And as we add more and more, we're going to have a big issue on moving this forward in the permitting process and net metering because we have a law, 17/2019, where by 2022, we should be at 20% of renewable energy. And as of today, we are probably at 3%, 3.1% only. So this is just start. In 2050, we're talking about 100%, 2040, 60%, and 2025, 40%. A huge incremental to meeting those goals. And we are at a point that's really a challenge for Puerto Rico. Lessons learned during this process, and I'm almost wrapping up, okay, but just bear with me. Data logging, any project that has storage, especially this one that we changed from critical loads to full site loads, there's no way we cannot analyze this doing the data logging. With the data logging in each of the stations that we've done, we'll see really what is the need, what is the maximum capacity or kilowatt that we'll have from the fire station, and what is needed over during the night hour from 4 p.m. to 8 a.m. so we can really recommend the right size of batteries, okay, for meeting the needs of the fire station. So this is a lesson learned, and that's what we've done in the most recent fire station we've done. And we continue doing it for future stations. Lesson learned, structural assessment, especially for the south and west area fire station because of the earthquake. With the structural engineering assessment is key, critical, okay? And also when it's tying with the roof sealing or roof repairs, that needs to be fixed before, because if we're putting a system for 25 years, okay, we're looking to minimize as much as possible any leakage. And that's one of the challenges we have had and lesson learned for the past fire station. Monitoring and maintenance, if we wanted to have this fire station for 25 years for operation, even though minimum maintenance is required, we need to do yearly maintenance, electrically speaking, torquing, verifying the racking system, the mechanical system, doing some tests every year, and also cleaning of the modules so we can keep up the production levels that we need. So that's has provided the long-term vision to keep it for solar responders, and also to work with the warranty services that we need to provide on this fire station. And lastly, and very important, as I mentioned, standardization is key for the minimum cost possible for the inventory for future replacement. And that's what we are looking forward. And we've learned this, obviously, after we did the first stations and looked for what type of material is better. That's how we're getting to a standardization for the fire station, as long as they are the same service. If the service is different, like instead of 120 to 40 three-phase system, then we might need to change standardization, but we're looking forward for the future challenges, okay? So that's it. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Sergeant Saez, Hunter, Angel, thank you so much for an awesome presentation. We have quite a few questions, so I'll try and get through as many as I can, and I encourage attendees, if we don't get to your question, you can feel free to email Hunter or Angel. Their emails are on the slide, and yeah, I'll just get right into the questions. So one thing that folks have wondered about is, the solar and storage systems that you all are installing are mostly designed to act as a backup to the grid. Are there any plans to make the stations independent of the grid at any point in the future?
Thanks for the question. We believe, the firefighters believe, I think probably most experts believe that redundancy is resiliency, and it's important that there are backup systems to the backup systems. So the emergency services is going to rely on the PREPA grid. When the PREPA grid fails, which it does often, as I stated, we've already provided 900 hours of backup power to the fire stations, specifically the Yauco station. I believe it's a little over 600 hours, and we installed that system 6 months ago. So we're talking about 100 hours of backup every single month, or 4 days of backup every single month. So at this time, we are, we're focused on the resiliency side. When the power goes out, they're standalone, and they can be standalone for extended periods of time.
Great, and kind of building off of that, actually, this might be a good question for Sergeant Saez. I wonder if you could get into more of what the fire stations having power during those lengthy outages means, because I think, for a lot of folks, it's okay, they get the life-saving equipment, communications, but what are the additional sort of community benefits to having those fire stations having power? If you could just highlight a few of those examples, since I think 600 hours is a lot of time, and I think it'd be great for folks to understand just what that translates to in terms of benefits to the community.
Yes, of course. Obviously, like I mentioned in my presentation, the biggest benefit is that we can get that call because just attend all the emergencies. And in Yauco, for example, 600 hours, yes, Yauco and Guanica, all this south, the power authority system does go out a lot, PREPA, and it's just having that system there to rely on that it's always going to be power. It's a big benefit that we have in both stations, and just receiving that call, it's so important for us. I cannot highlight that enough. We need that phone, depends on the power. The telephone line, we have a system set up that if there's no power, we don't have telephone line. I don't know if this is something of knowledge, in the past, telephone lines were separate from the power authority. If we lose power, we do have still a telephone line, but right now that is not what it's going on. Right now, we depend on power to have those telephone lines activated. We have a system that if we have no power, no internet, it doesn't work. So we need that power authority to have that line active. If not, we cannot receive that 911 call, or the person, the citizens do call us direct to the station. A lot of people still here in the South don't call 911. They call the fire station direct. So by having this system benefits that we always have power, and we get that call and be able to respond.
And just to add to that point, Abby, is that first responders, when an emergency occurs, first responders need to communicate mutual aid to each other. So if they need support, if they need to distribute resources to certain areas and so on and so forth, they need to be able to communicate that. So in addition to receiving these 911 calls and these emergency calls for help, they need to be able to relay information between stations. And in Puerto Rico, all the 96 fire stations, they are pretty far away from each other. They're anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, you know, and then that's with clear roads. With roads that have debris or they're blocked, it's even more difficult. So
let me add also.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, let me add that also I see the fire station as a community resiliency center. It's like the place to go if any emergency just happened. They are around the communities too. So having this backup system, energy system running the fire station, it becomes like a delight for the communities to say, I know where I can go and get the help, whatever I need. Even to get the medicines and put it in your refrigerator just to keep it cool.
Yes, that's a great example is Guanica, my fire station. We have the ocean close. It's a tsunami. You know, we have to, if there is any big emergency, God not permit, for an earthquake, all the cars from that community, the vehicles, they take them to the fire station because they got to take all those vehicles out. And my fire station is one of the meeting points, so they can take their vehicles and themselves in a case of a tsunami and try to save their lives. They stay there in the fire station. And obviously, like Angel says, they do take their all their medicines and store it in our station. So there's a lot of things that go on with the community. They see the fire station as, of course, as a savior.
Yeah, that's a great point, Sergeant Saez, and I think that leads actually into another question that was asked, which is, Angel, you mentioned that when installing the battery systems and things like that, you try to place them in locations where they'd be less susceptible to damage from natural disasters. But, particularly because these systems are so important, and it's so important to have power during natural disasters, what have you done to really ensure the systems aren't super susceptible to damage? And if they do get damaged, what kind of procedures are in place to make sure that these systems are repaired as quickly as possible and brought back online during a natural disaster?
No, that's an excellent question. The main reason at the beginning we started putting in the outside was different. It was cost-wise, it's cost less because we are just around and close to the main service, and we were taking care of the whole station, so that was easier. But as soon as we need to put the batteries inside and major equipment inside, obviously we need to find the best place as close as possible to have the batteries inside, and that at cost. So we are always on a budget and looking forward to meet that budget as much as possible. That's one. And second, on the second question about how can we react or repair on an emergency or get damage, well, that's very important. Having inventory minimum, but at least standardized across the the stations or in a warehouse that we can use and get to the sites. That's really one of the ways we're looking in the future, and that's why standardization becomes one of the key factors to on the decision making, just to decide what type of materials we're going to use, and that's why it's very important to keep that in mind.
And also, I would say that we have monitoring, so we monitor our systems through the Tesla app, which is very helpful. So that's real time. The firefighters have access to that app, so we have a tablet in each station so that they can monitor it. We also started to use early last year microinverters, so that it provides redundancy, or if one inverter goes down, it doesn't affect the whole system. So we're always thinking, always trying to plan ahead, always trying to get better. We're always adapting and improving and learning of ways that we can protect the systems for the firefighters.
Great. So on another note, Hunter, you mentioned that Solar Responders work with Captain Richard Burt, who has done a lot of really great work in educating fire departments on how to deal with solar and storage, including a CEG webinar we hosted a few weeks ago. Hunter, Sergeant Saez, I wonder if you could speak more to how solar and storage can be better integrated into first responder operations. I know you mentioned you're working on updating an SOP for first responders.
Sergeant, do you want to go?
Go ahead, you go.
We're so grateful for Captain Burt's expertise. He is a very, for those who have heard his webinar, he's a person who knows what is best for the fire department, and when he talks, you listen, and we're really grateful for his expertise. These systems, the only way that they can truly work is through training and education and awareness of the technology and how to use it. So it's really incumbent upon us as an organization. I am not a first responder, to listen to the experts, the professional firefighters. So we really look forward to incorporating the research and the knowledge that has been done by the captain and others in the field, and to be able to incorporate it into a workable document, workable training for the firefighters, so that they can succeed.
Yeah, I can add on to that. The importance of the maintenance of the system. Firefighters, our agency, we know how to respond to emergencies. We do not, we don't emphasize and have to worry about maintenance of no kind. That's one of the benefits, one of the things the flaws that we have right now with the power. We do have systems installed, or generators, diesel generators, gas generators, but the maintenance part of it is it's one of our flaws. We do have some systems. Every station should have generators, but gas, diesel, the maintenance capacity of our agency, it takes a toll, with all the oil change and gas and diesel. So it's very important that we do have an SOP, that we sign that agreement. And it's not only just putting the system in the stations. The great thing about Solar Responders is, that's what Hunter told us, they install it and they give it maintenance. That is so important, because if the agency has to do the maintenance, the systems will not, it will not last. So we're grateful for that. That's a very important point.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add that the education and training. We today we were doing the training for the fire station in Cataño, and we want the firefighters understand the system clearly and the in and outs, what's the consumption, what's the storage capacity that they have, how it's working, they can see it, and that's why that part is really important in this process that we are through the fire station.
Great, thank you so much. Well, I know we're just after the hour, so I don't want to keep you all too much longer. Sergeant Saez, Hunter, Angel, I just want to thank you again for participating in this webinar, and thank you everyone else so much for joining. We had a lot of great questions today. And as I said, feel free to contact Hunter or Angel if you have further questions. And just wanted to flag that we also do have, CEG does have a few additional webinars coming up, including building community resilience hubs, a conversation with the Asian Pacific Environmental Network and Rise Center, which will be on Wednesday, March 10th, a webinar on the Connected Solutions Program and how it improves the economics and social benefits of solar and storage, which will be on Friday, March 12th, and a webinar on a new report our sister organization, CISA, has published on collaborating with community-based organizations and energy justice program for states, which will be on Tuesday, March 23rd. So if you're interested in any of those, you can go ahead and register for them on our website. So thanks again, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.